Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and you're watching The Broken Meeple. This is a YouTube channel about board games where I give reviews, top 10s and my honest opinions, regardless of the consequences. We'll get on with the show in just a minute, but first a quick word from my sponsor. As a fellow gamer, you'll understand this is unacceptable. The solution? Head down to my new sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk. KIENDA stocks many of the hot new releases as well as some old hidden gems. Free delivery on orders over £30, further discounts on bulk purchases, and even 5% of your spending refunded back to you as points to be used for further discounts down the line. If you use the referral link in the description below and sign up for a new account, you'll get 5% discount on your first order over £60. So let's make gaps in your collection a thing of the past. Get down to KIENDA and start saving today. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the video.
Get on with it.
So on this episode I'm giving my first impressions after 2 plays of Deal with the Devil. And I say first impressions because for reasons that we'll get on to, this is a game I've only managed to get to the table twice. But I wanted to get something out for you, give you my thoughts, and of course I can point you to other videos that have been done. I know Board Game Ramblings have done a video on this. Obviously Paul Grogan has done a full tutorial and he's done playthroughs on this. So like I say, check out some of the others if you want to get full reviews. Although to be honest, a lot of people have only done first impressions and like I say, we're about to find out why. So in Deal with the Devil, this is essentially a 4-player only trading game that is app assisted, and before you run away screaming that you don't like apps, it is a small part of the game. It's essential, you need the app in order to run it, but it's like such a minor thing, you know, it takes you about like a few seconds to use it and that's about it.
Endless tools for creativity, and I'm the bad guy?
But what you're essentially doing is you are 4 merchants going around. One of you is the devil, one of you is a cultist, and 2 of you are just ordinary human merchants. And what you're doing is you're essentially trying to build up your own little empire of buildings with special abilities and set collection and things like that. You're trading resources like grain, wood, stone, glass, you know, the usual stuff that you'll get in medieval times. But here's the twist. Some of you also have pieces of soul that you can trade, and the devil is interested in getting as many pieces of soul as possible for scoring points. The cultist has some tainted soul that he wants to give away, preferably to the devil in order to score points, and the mortals want to try and keep their soul intact for as long as possible, but maybe somebody makes such a good deal that you might want to give a little bit of your soul away in order to get the resources and money that you need.
So I say do it. Do it! Do it, do it, do it!
So the main crux is that everybody will sit behind their segment of the board, which has a production wheel that tells you what resources you produce in one of the 5 rounds of the game. But the main idea is that everybody has a little crate like this. It's got a QR code on the bottom, and it swivels open like so to reveal spaces for resources and a marker to say, I would like, you know, this much coins for it. This is a mortal chest that I've got here. So what could happen is that the mortal is saying, all right, you know, I could really use a lot of wood this round because I want to build these particular buildings, like a lumber mill. I need wood, so please give me some wood. And what you can do is that you'll basically want to trade with other players, so somebody will hopefully make you an offer. But maybe I've got an abundance of stone, I've got a quarry that's doing a pretty good job for me, and I've got stone to trade. I could pop 3 stone in here, like so, and there's a little marker here which allows me to set the price that I want. So look, I'm going to give you 3 stone here, and I know that it would cost you 9 gold to get those 3 stone, because you can exchange resources for gold and vice versa. So you know what, make you a deal, give me 7. Give me 7 gold for these 3 stone, okay? I then close the case, I then pass it back to the player who's handling the app, and eventually there'll be 4 of these available, all sealed with no way to tell which one is which. They get shuffled randomly, and the app has a scanning function with its camera that basically all you do is hover the thing over it, it scans the QR code, and it tells you who to give this to. It doesn't tell you that the devil is giving chest to whatever, it simply says, hand this chest to player blue. That's it. So as long as they've been shuffled up well, you should not know which chest is going to what player. It's not entirely random, but you have to go to the back of the rulebook to find out the exact way that it does things, and honestly, just forget it. It's not worth your time to learn it. It's overcomplicating the game even more so than it already is. And what will happen is that you'll get the chest and you'll look at it and go, that's the offer, is it? Yeah, I don't know. And you'll have a choice whether to reject or accept it. If you accept it, you put the stuff in that it wants and you hand it back. If you accept the offer, you put the resources or coins as necessary. If you reject it, you just hand it back. It then gets scanned again by the phone, handed out a second time, and you rinse repeat, and hopefully somebody's made an offer or accepted one and vice versa. Everybody will then get their crates back again via the app. This is all the app basically does. It just takes you through the rounds and says scan it and give it to so many players. If that's too much for you for an app, then I don't know what to say, really. It's not like it's interfering with your game very much. And only one of you needs to have the app open, so everybody else can have their phones away and you just have your phone there purely for the app. It's all you need. It's simple to use and it works very smoothly. And once you've got your stuff back, you then have some actions that you can do where I have not built the entire tower unit in front of you. You'll just have to rely on the pictures. But basically, with some colored beads, you can track which actions you want to do. Like, I want to build this particular building. I want to activate this particular building for resources. I want to buy a courtier to get set collections and so forth. But you've also got event cards that you can play where you have to choose between the nice or the bad outcome of the event. Good and bad means positive or negative reputation, but you gotta pay resources for the good side, but you'll get nice stuff for the bad side. So how tempted are you? After which you've then got a few little mini phases where you track your reputation and get rewards based on such angel and demon wings, which you use to help you in various other ways. But the only other phases of the game are a witch hunt, where you get to accuse who you reckon doesn't have all 3 of their bits of soul left. Of course, the devil and the cultist never did, but the mortals, on the other hand, might have given one of their bits of soul away, you never know. And the Inquisition, where these inquisitors have come across and they will penalise you for things that you've done unless you pay them off, but everybody has a chance to bribe them off as a communal offer. And of course, if you've got lots of your soul handy, then, well, you don't really care about the inquisitors. But if you've been spending your soul like crazy, you might want to find some way to appease them. Like I say, nobody likes the inquisitors when they come round to visit. And so you go through 5 rounds as such, where the phases are slightly different in each round. You know, an Inquisition only happens in 2 rounds, same for the Witch Hunt, but you'll always get to do the production, the trade, getting more building cards, drafting them around the table, and at the end of the 5 rounds, you have some final scoring based on which role you are. So the Devil scores based on souls he's collected, the Mortal score based on all the achievements that they've made, and so forth. And of course, the one with the most points.
Of course!
Now, as my Devil Fizzkig has told me, yes, that was quite a summarized overview, but honestly, there's quite a lot going on in this game, and if I tried to explain every single rule in this game, we'd be here until next week. But basically, what you need to get sort of knowing going in is that this is not a simple game, okay? I actually thought this would be simpler than it actually was, until I noticed the designer, Matus Kotri, I'm not sure if that's pronounced right, but basically it's the same guy who did Alchemist. If you know what Alchemist is from CGE, ooh-wee, a fun game, but that was a heavy deduction game mixed with a heavy worker placement game. Put the two together and you've got one hell of a thematic but fiddly game to play. And the same person's done this, and you can tell it's got his hallmarks throughout this. This is not a game to pick up and play. You need to get used to this. You're going to need a practice game. Ideally, you want someone who's a fantastic teacher. In fact, the first game, I was having to teach this, and I wasn't confident I could. But then somebody very kindly, who knew me, came along and spared 30 minutes to teach us the game. Thank you so much, that was very useful, but it made life a lot easier when I taught it the second time. But this is not something that you will easily be able to grasp. I mean, yes, you do have a very good, fantastic reference aid for all the phases and that, which, like I say, if you follow this step by step, it will really help you to guide you through the game. But it's not so much the rules overhead for everything you're doing. You can pick that up after a little while. I mean, oh yeah, I draw more cards and I draft them. Okay, we've seen that before. Okay, I plan my actions with these beats. Well, it shows you the route and the order it goes in. That's not so bad. And yeah, spend resources, put building cards out, generate production. That sort of stuff is familiar to most gamers. What's tricky about this, though, is what exactly are you supposed to do well? The trading aspect. It does give you a conversion chart to say, well, you can buy a basic resource for 3 gold and a rare resource for 5 gold. Okay, so you should base your trades on that. But again, what do you price everything at? I mean, if you priced it too high or too low, I don't know. But particularly, this becomes more of a problem with the souls. The devil is trying to get your soul.
I rather think we could strike a deal, Bender.
So the devil is trying to offer a ton of stuff in exchange. Look, I can give you all these resources and all this money. I just want your soul. Give me your soul.
Just one itty-bitty thing. Your firstborn son.
Problem is, what do you value a soul at? There's no way to tell. There's nothing to sort of go, well, a soul's roughly worth about 10 gold. There isn't. You have to kind of price it accordingly. And if you are not, if you go too easy on the soul exchanging, you're just giving the devil a massive leg up for the end of the game. But then, of course, if the devil doesn't price their soul accordingly and everyone's really stingy over it, then the devil scores next to nothing at the end and there's a problem. It's one of these games that I consider to be quite fragile. When it works, it works. And it worked in both our games, but we could tell that there was definitely an indication that, you know, if somebody let the devil get away with murder effectively in the first couple of rounds,
Here you go.
the devil kind of runs away with the game. It's a lot easier, I think, to play the devil than it is to play the other factions or whatever.
No backsies.
This is a very niche game. It's 4 players only. Now, I normally can get 4 players easily, but again, I still need 4 exact players. And I need 4 players who are good with medium to heavyweight games, because this is not a light game. I'm not putting any light gamer in front of this ever. It's not happening. So I need 4 fairly attuned gamers. Okay, fine. Now, as I said, you need to get used to what to value a soul at and what to price certain things at. So you're probably going to want a regular group of the exact same 4 mid to heavyweight gamers. You can see where I'm going with this. This requires you to have a very specific setup group to get the most out of this game. And I am not saying that this game is bad. On the contrary, I enjoyed my 2 plays of this. But it's one of those games that I just don't feel I'll ever get played, because I don't have a regular group of 4 who are willing to play this multiple times in sequence to get used to how to play this game. If you are like me, who finds himself teaching a lot of different players at different times, especially of multiple different scales of light, medium, and heavyweight gamers, this game is just never going to hit the table because you will never get the setup, or it will fall flat because somebody won't understand what they're doing, or new players will unbalance things, because you really want the balanced setup. 1 or 2 new players could throw this completely out of sync in favor of certain other players. I mean, if the mortals, which I think are the hardest characters to play in this game, if they're the brand new players, and it's random, so you don't know who got what, if they're new, good luck trying to win. The mortals have lost quite catastrophically in the 2 games that I've played. Whereas when I played the devil for the first time in the first game, I won, not by loads, but I still won next to the cultist. And then in the second game we played, the cultist won, followed by the devil. The mortals have come 3rd and 4th in both games. Not to say that they can't win the game, but it's going to be harder. It's going to need practice. It needs somebody familiar with how they work, you know, because you need to understand that you can't accept the first thing the devil offers you. You need to understand that if you sell your soul too cheap, it's going to bite you back later on. And people just don't get this when they first see the game.
This bloke won't haggle.
Won't haggle.
Components wise, you get a lot of stuff in this box. I mean, you get a couple of trays with lots of little hex tokens. Every player has got all sorts of achievement things and little beads and that. You've got this massive tower that you're supposed to build in front of you. So here's my, there's my tower. There's a thing that's meant to go on top of it, and then I can put this roof on top, and it's just like, oh, God blimey, this is like quite a lot to have to do and have to set up. And certainly this game has a very lengthy setup. I mean, you've got to set up this board, get the players what they need, set up these giant towers, get the cards sorted by different rounds, get these crates organized between the players, and of course, depending on which player you are, you need to pre-populate them with the various things that that player is going to need. Then you need to get this board set up, and then you need to use the app in order to distribute these 4 to the players, who then need to empty it out and know what they're doing. It's quite a lengthy setup, and then on top of that, once we get past the components, it's a very long game. I mean, the game box, what does it quote? 120 minutes? If you know what you're doing, maybe. This is a game that's taking you closer to 3 hours, frankly, with most players that you play this with. 4 players, if they knew exactly what they were doing, I'm fairly confident could probably do this in 2, but they would need to know this game inside out. No rules checking, no uncertainties, no AP. Then you might be able to do 2 hours, and even then, that's not including setup and takedown, because I guarantee you cannot do it in that time. But it's more likely 3 hours. That's quite a long game. 5 rounds, 3 hours, where most of the time it's just waiting for people to hurry up and plan their actions, or waiting for people to decide what they're doing with the crates, because if you get a crate that's already had an offer accepted, you just close it, hand it back. But if somebody's got something that they're debating over, it's like, okay, come on, no wait, you ready yet? KIENDA, you know, there's a bit of downtime, there's a bit of locking up, there's some grinding to a halt. This is not what I would call a smooth game, and you're going to be in there for a while.
Well, we're waiting.
Now, the theme and the concept was what enticed me into Deal with the Devil in the first place. My anticipation factor went down a bit when I found out just how involved it was and, you know, how much of a mix and niche game it was going to be. But the theme was the main draw, and the theme does work very well. Yeah, you're just merchants, you know, putting buildings down and trading resources. That doesn't sound fun in its own right. But people get into the theme of this idea of the devil basically going around and stealing souls, and everyone pointing a finger, kind of witch hunt style, as to, I reckon you're a little bit tainted over there, or I reckon you sold your soul, you know, for a twig just to build your lumber mill. People get into these roles very well. The aesthetics help with the theme. It's done kind of semi tongue-in-cheek. You know, it's not meant to be super serious. You're meant to kind of have a laugh with this, and I think it works. You know, the theme definitely did come through. I enjoyed it a lot for that reason, but you're in that for a while, so again, time and investment, is it worth it? The game also has a slightly punishing nature for those who end up with the negative VP scoring from the Inquisitors. I've played the Mortals once, and I've played the Devil once. And especially as the Mortal, if those Inquisitors hit you hard because the trades haven't gone the way you want them to, then suddenly you're set with a ton of negative points. And that doesn't feel good when you've been stuck here for 3 hours and suddenly your score is like negative 30 and the Devil's still in the positives. It's like, well, I've got no chance of catching up. What exactly am I supposed to do here? And each round you are trying to think, well, have I got the resources to make this deal? Well, I wish I did, but that trade didn't go. So now I'm short, so I can't build the building I wanted, so I guess I'm not doing a huge amount this round, and that is a little bit of a downer for some players. Granted, if it goes well, then great, but then that feels kind of rich get richer in a sense. I also felt that the game could have been streamlined a little. I enjoyed the aspects of the game as I was playing it, but you've got a lot of phases here. I mean, you've got production, cards, deals, actions, interest, reputation, witch hunt, and inquisition. You don't do all 8 in a single round, but sometimes you do. But there are some of these ones which aren't too difficult. I mean, interest is pretty straightforward, and so is production. The actions and the deals is kind of the meat of the game. But then the Inquisition, it took me several times to quite understand what was going on in the Inquisition phase. That takes quite a few reads of the rulebook, or certainly you need to watch Paul Grogan's tutorial in a lot of detail. But there's also that witch hunt phase, which is fairly straightforward, but it almost seems kind of inconsequential.
We have found the witch, may we burn her?
Basically, you just do like a closed bid with a voting token to go, I reckon you haven't got all your soul available. And then that person has to go, right, I do have all my soul, or say, no, I don't. Oh, well, I put a little token in front of me to say I can't be accused again, and you lot get some points or something, like some mediocre amount of scoring. That's literally it. That's all the witch hunt is. It just seems so minor to have it in there that why is it even in there in the first place? You could shave a little bit of time off the game if you just cut that out of 2 of the rounds. You could argue it kind of helps you to suss out who you might think the devil and the cultists are, because you do get to accuse them in the Inquisition phase. But even so, there might have been an easier way to do it, or maybe just watch how the game's progressing, because it just felt really arbitrary. Like, all right, we got to do this phase now. Let's go through the steps in turn, right? There's witch hunt, but then it doesn't really make a huge amount of an impact on the game.
Well, she turned me into a newt. I got better.
So Deal with the Devil was a bit of a weird one to talk about and rate, because from my 2 games, I've enjoyed it. I do think it's a good game, but it's incredibly niche. This is not a game I recommend for everybody, because most of you are not going to be in a situation where playing this game is even feasibly possible. You need the 4 players. They need to be pretty well versed in games. You need to be regular. You can't afford to be playing this with new players all the time, because it would just unbalance how all the roles and trading work. You need to be comfortable with this 2 to 3 hour time limit of the game. You need to want to use the app, and I know that puts off quite a few people. It's just got a lot of things that you need to have in place in order to play this and get the full effect out of it, that it's just not going to hit the table very often. I've had this since Essen. I've managed to pull it out twice. That is saying something, and I needed a convention to help me with one of those games. It's just not easy to get all of those little pieces in place in order to enjoy this to its fullest. When it is in place, I reckon you will enjoy it. It will have its fans. But that's the thing, it's going to be a very small niche group, and so it's not that I'm saying I don't recommend this game. I actually think it's a decent game. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 in fact, but it's a 7 out of 10 if you have the pieces set up. If you don't, then I don't think I would recommend you get this game. It's just simply not for you. And so that's kind of where I am at. You know, if somebody wanted to play this game and I knew that it was going to be a teaching game for many people, I might not be that keen on it. But if I knew I was playing this with people who knew what they were doing, I'd be like, well, you know what? It's a bit of fun. We could play this in 2.5 hours, 2 hours, because we know what we're doing. Cool, let's do it. But how often is that going to happen? I mean, once in a blue moon? Or once in a devil's moon? I don't know. Is that a thing? It's one of those games that I appreciate the design, I love the concept, I love the theme, I like that CGE is trying to do something different here. I mean, give this designer credit. He tried something very different with Alchemist, he's doing something very different with this one, and I applaud any kind of innovation in board gaming these days, and this is definitely an innovative game. The problem is, innovation in games sometimes works brilliantly, sometimes doesn't. This is kind of in the middle. It works, but being this incredibly niche, it's hard to say that this is suddenly the next best thing. But if you've got that set up with 4 regular players, then you're going to think that this is a grand design, you're going to think it's amazing, you're going to think it's the next best evolution in board gaming. In which case, great, because I can see why. But some people I have seen bounce off this one fairly hard, in fact, and again, I can understand why. This is one that you're probably going to want to try before you buy, or you're going to need to assess your various gaming capabilities before you sink your teeth into this one. So that's it for me, a 7 out of 10 for Deal with the Devil. Good, but very niche. If you like what you see, then please feel free to like and share this video on social media. Also like it on Board Game Geek if you can. Check out the Patreon if you're interested in helping out the channel get more review copies. But of course, mainly I just want to hear your comments. What are your thoughts about this game? Have you played it? Are you considering it? Do you have that group set up? I reckon we could debate about this game until the end of time. There's so much that could be talked about here, and I've only played it twice. So take my rating with a pinch of salt. These are first impressions. But to try and get this game played like, 7, 8 times to try and do a full review of it, just ain't gonna happen. At least not until the end of next year. It's one of those setups that I just can't get on a regular basis. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts, and I'm sure a lot of others would as well. Until next time, you can check out more content on the channel, including the recent review I did for the Asia expansion for Wingspan, and if you're into long live streams, All The Board Gamer and I sat down for 3 hours of talking about overrated games, and it was a blast. Listen to it in the car, do it in piecemeal, because it's a long one, but I hope you enjoy. Take care, and remember as always, regardless if you're tempted by the devil or not, it's still only a game. Bye for now.
Here, take him. What are you waiting for? A kiss goodbye?